See Beneath Your Beautiful podcast is raw and intimate, sometimes funny, and always entertaining. With new episodes every Saturday, Hara explores our loves, fears, and hopes with a delicious combination of depth and lightness.
My intro has changed so much over the years. My name is Dr. J J Kelly, and I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and emotional intelligence skills expert. That's what I'm saying lately because people like the licensing thing, and I worked really hard for that.
Yeah.
And I did do psychotherapy for like 17 years. And I just didn't I did what I could within a system I don't agree with. I think there are a lot of isms in mental health. And while COVID has raised awareness about the need for emotional intelligence skills, I don't think the field itself was ready to teach them.
What do you mean exactly by emotional skills?
Well, I started teaching DBT, dialectical behavior therapy, in 2004. And that's basically just Zen mindfulness meets cognitive behavioral therapy or an assertiveness training. And it's very practical. And it's something you practice the skills in order to develop new behaviors to engage in when you're emotionally dysregulated or activated. So you don't make huge messes that bite you in the ass later because you had a ton of anger on board or something like that,
I see.
So we teach, notice the emotion and regulate the emotion before you do anything.
And do you have success with that? You can learn that.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Tons. The success I'm not having is trying to get it into schools and getting through that red tape. I think it should be taught in middle school, high school, at least, so that everybody has the skills before the crises start happening,
Right.
Before the pills and the diagnoses and all that crap.
What are some of the skills in particular? Like how do you teach somebody to think before they act? Is that what you're saying? Think before you act or react?
Yes. That's a simplified way to look at it. I mean, Thich Nhat Hanh has been talking about mindfulness forever. And
yeah,
dialectical behavior therapy is just, Marshall Lenehan took his Miracle of Mindfulness. Those are the first 2 modules of all 4.
Okay.
It's a lot of pieced together things. I think she discovered some things that weren't working too, like validating somebody where they are. We all jump into problem solving right away. If we meet for coffee or a drink or something and you're like, oh, I just had the worst day. Like my boss was up my ass about such and such. And I'm like, well, did you ever think about how your boss feels, Hara? It's a well-intended thing. I'm trying to help, but there's an automatic miss there in our connection because I didn't meet you where you were. If you show up to every one of our coffee or drink meetings like that, and I'm like, oh, here she goes again, or whatever, yeah. I can still validate you from a genuine place. I can say, whoa, looks like that was pretty activating, or that sucks. Mm-hmm. I mean, that sucks is a pretty great validation statement. That's real easy to use in a truthful way. So meeting somebody and then being like, hey, is this like one of those vent sessions or are we problem solving on this? Mm-hmm. But everybody just jumps right in.
I do remember going to a counselor many years ago and then giving me a book on mindfulness. I never cracked it open is my point. How's this going to solve my problem? I thought, but you're saying exactly that it would have had I been able to. How do you get people to go, oh, it's all up to me? I mean, I'm there now. Like I realize it is all up to me. Everything's how I react to something, right, is up to me.
I don't want to diss that there. You know what I mean? Like
No, tell me what you think.
I think that I would have talked to you about that book.
Oh, right.
And been like, I think the reason it sticks, particularly with young people, is because we talk about it in real life.
Yeah.
I don't hand them my book. I mean, I will if they want it, but you know what I mean? Like I hand them or talk about Rick Carson's book, Taming Your Gremlin. Like we talk about it, but I say, hey, this example in your life is something this book talks about and could help you with. But really, I will do a real life example with them right then and there, because how the hell else do you get buy-in?
Yeah, no, that's helpful. I just thought how helpful it was when you just gave your example of, well, that sucks.
Like when I talk to you, or I talk to a client, or even a professional, or do lives or whatever, I like to have a real live example, something from their life. Because people are like, well, how do you stay calm during COVID? Like, that's a big question. You care to narrow that down so that my answer is actually useful to you?
Yeah.
And then it really can be very useful, because there are so many skills taught in the program. So you can pick and choose from a bunch.
You're talking about a specific program that you teach. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, I call it the Get Real program just because I'm so no bullshit. But it's based on the principles of DBT, dialectical behavior therapy.
What's the first word you just said?
Dialectical, but I often say diabolical because it's funny.
I know what diabolical means, but what does dialectical mean?
Dialectic is a Venn diagram. My entire life has become a Venn diagram.
Explain what that is for somebody who doesn't know.
It's those two circles that intersect, and I do it with my hands constantly throughout my days. And it's basically two seemingly opposing things existing at the same time in a harmonious way. So you're looking at that place of integration of those two circles. And it's talked about all the time. Middle path, balance, wise mind is what it's called in DBT, where your flow is, where you're truly yourself. It's like intuition, not exactly, but it's, a knowing without analyzing.
So my daughter, I was going to say my friend, just not to throw my daughter under the bus, but my daughter is upset about something at the moment. How do you help somebody who's upset in the moment? Like you can't reason with them because they're so upset.
I get that a lot. I think whether you're by yourself or with someone else, validation is the first step always.
Okay.
Validation can just mean that you validate the emotion, not the thoughts or the behaviors, because those can go whack pretty fast. But all the emotions that we have are valid simply from us having them. Okay. So if you can see your daughter, you can take a guess at what her emotional experience is based on what she looks like. I try to get people to get more specific in their vocabulary and language than upset. People say upset a lot. That doesn't tell me anything except we're in the negative realm. That could mean sad, mad, scared. I might say, you look pretty agitated right now. Just from the bodily jitters that she's showing me or whatever. I take a stab at it. It's a little dicey because if you get it wrong, they can get real pissed when they're already pissed. Seems like you're a little bit sad. I'm not sad. I'm pissed off or whatever. And I'm like, okay, pissed off. I'll dig for sad later. You know what I mean? I might know something about them that they're not even able to see in the moment because they're so activated. And I'm not attached to being right about the sad anyway. If they want to do mad first, that's cool.
That's funny. Yeah. Well, I guess I was just saying how, without solving her problem, how do I help her help herself? That's the whole point, right?
Yes. Without any of the details. Yeah. My answer to that is validate where she's at.
Right.
And then ask her what she needs. You might even guess, sometimes when someone's activating, you're like, what do you need right now? They have no idea. Yeah. So I often will give a choice. Like I said earlier, you seem pretty agitated. Do you want to just vent and have me listen here silently? Or are you recruiting me to problem solve with you?
Gotcha. That's great. Yeah.
And then let them answer. I think it's really tough for parents and kids, even adult kids. If she says vent, then zip it. Do not offer advice that is not asked for.
Right.
Because that will wind them up again. And they experience that as invalidating when they just want to be listened to. So if she's able to say to you, I don't want your help, I just want you to listen, then it is so important to just not offer unsolicited.
I love that. Byron Katie always says, your emotions have a right to life.
Oh, well said.
In the moment, I'm allowed to feel this way.
Right. Because you're so far off your baseline.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the validation will bring you back to baseline, bring you back to your wise mind, and then you can evaluate what to do about a situation.
I see.
Nobody's in their best state for problem solving when they're spiked in a fear place or whatever.
Yeah.
When you have a ton of emotion on board, you want to like chill before you make any decisions of how to act.
In your program, Get Real, what are some of the things you do, or what's some of the tools you teach?
Oh my gosh, I love so many of them. It's 8 weeks, and one of my favorite weeks is week 3 because we talk about radical acceptance and we talk about willfulness.
Okay.
Willfulness is the behaviors we engage in that we know make messes, and yet we do it anyway. And I think that kind of thing is absolutely hilarious. I'm pretty sure Lenahan, the creator of it, I'm pretty sure she specifically told us as practitioners not to share with clients our own willful behaviors, but I totally do because I think it's inherently validating. You know, they'll often idealize me, and to a certain extent that can help. I think I'm a really decent role model for people, yet if they idealize me too much, then they're offloading responsibility for their own changes onto me, meaning, oh, it's JJ. She can do it. I can't do it. No, dude, if I can do it, you definitely can do it, is the point. No one was more willful than me at 19. So we talk about how there are 2 big players emotion-wise that lead to willful behaviors. Do you want to take a guess as to what those are?
Mad.
Yes.
And scared.
Yes. Awesome. Yes.
Oh, I'm awesome.
Fear and anger. Yes. It's like a lot of the times it's like fear. Oh my God, I don't know where to start, so I don't.
Right.
And that's procrastination, totally willful. Avoidance, totally willful. These are the things that cause messes. Or it's like a fuck you, I'm not doing that. And then just dig your heels in and not go forward. So in order to move to teaching them radical acceptance, you know, acceptance of reality, you don't have to like it. You can even hate it. You just got to get real with the fact that it's happening, even to change it. We can't get to that until we start to get honest about what our regular willful behaviors are so we can spot them when we're at that crossroads.
Give me an example of a willful behavior that,
Oh, you give me an example.
Of where I'm willful?
Yeah.
I feel differently this minute, but for the longest time, I could not.
Thought you could not. Yeah.
I wasn't moving and I wanted to. I was in a funk and just sitting. But my desire was that I was moving.
Moving literally, like exercising?
Literally exercising, getting up off the effing couch. I was in a funk.
That's a great example because oftentimes society mistakenly calls that laziness. And I don't believe in laziness as a concept at all.
Oh, okay.
I do not let students use that word because I think it is so harmful. It's sort of a verbal cutting is what I call it. Because laziness is a stoppage of action. And again, yes, it might be willful, meaning it might be getting in our own way, that stoppage, but it is emotionally driven. It's either buried rage that is being turned inward and people get depressed because they're holding a lid on all that anger, and or they're terrified to move forward because of the unknown. And everybody's afraid of the unknown if you don't validate it, which we often don't, because we're like, oh, if we hide from the fear, then we won't feel it. No, actually, the opposite is true. When we acknowledge and validate the fear, then we can regulate it, get back to our baseline, and start effectively problem solving around it. So it looks like depression. It's called depression, yet that's just a very surface. It's medicated. And that does help people sometimes. It's just like, what was the root of it in the first place? Could we have gone after it behaviorally before meds got put on board? How come the person got depressed in the first place?
Right.
Just to call something isn't always helpful. To listen to the person's emotional experience. Like, what's going on with you? Why don't you want to? You were probably so busy berating and shaming yourself. You were just like staying stuck with like self-loathing on top of fear and or anger. It's just such a shit show.
No, I think you're right. I did do coaching and I am out of it and I feel so great. And I've been moving every day and I feel just on top of the world, actually.
Yeah. Nice.
But I can see that while I wasn't moving, there was shame and anger and frustration. And I was piling it on, like you're saying, I really was, because I wasn't doing what I wanted to do.
Get at the emotions that are causing the willful behavior. Even calling it willful kind of takes that stank out of it, like they're so mired in shame. It's already impressive that they're telling me about it. Like that's already brave. And I can totally genuinely validate that courage too. And then start lifting the shame off, because the shame is just societally programmed. We don't have to be brainwashed in that way, that if we're not doing things productively every second, we're a piece of shit. Like that sucks. So if we can lift the shame off and get at the anger and or the fear, maybe there's some sadness in there too. And we can do that work underneath. Then we can get at, well, what do you want to be doing instead of what you're doing? Let's just talk about it shame-free. And then let's take that first baby step. Let's not have it be this huge thing. Just do a little tiny thing to get out of where you are. And then we'll celebrate that together. And then we'll build on that and we'll do 2 tomorrow,
We know each other because of Archangel.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing you. Well, you stand out. Did you have purple hair then or pink hair?
I might have pink hair.
But I don't know if it's your pink glasses. They're so cool. Your pink glasses stand out. I don't know if we ever actually met in person then, but I remember you from that event in LA.
We did meet in person. We were sitting on the steps looking out from the business.
Yeah. Awesome. Oh, thanks for remembering.
Yeah.
During COVID, you offered a free session and I did that because I couldn't get out of my head. Anyway, that was nice. And you've done things where you're on the street corner. What's that about?
Oh, yeah. Before COVID, locked it all the way down, we were doing community outreach. See, Unorthodox Inc., DOCS is my company. I took everybody that was in private practice and I made them in a group of advanced students of the Get Real program. So they are more emotionally intelligent than the doctoral level people I supervised, wow, because they want to change their lives and they have. They're the docs. And I'm trying to get rid of the doctor worship in our society by calling them docs too. So we would go out down the street and set up tables and a little bit of background music and offer the free 5, which was really more like a free 15. If anyone wanted to sit down and get, 15 minutes free with the punk rock doc, then they could ask me a question and I would talk to them.
Did people take you up on it?
Totally. Yeah. It's super cool. And, in between we would just dance or something and talk or do clips with the docs. The docs get free time if nobody's coming by or whatever. And they can look at my books and talk to the docs are the proof, they're the poster children for dialectical behavior therapy because they're they're just so different than they used to be, they're so confident and funny and they're just shiny in a way that a person that likes themselves is, you can feel confidence from people because they behave according to their own values using the skills. When they're very emotionally activated, they don't go willful every time and reactive anymore. They take a second and then they decide how they want to behave. And that reduces the shame of acting the asshole all the time when you're emotionally dysregulated. So if you live this life that has so little shame in it because you're so disciplined and skilled that you almost always act according to your own values, you're only going to like grow and sparkle. And that's what makes this the best job ever for me. I just love it. And that's why I'll do it forever. It's so cool to watch them come alive.
I really do appreciate how straightforward you are. It is one of my favorite qualities in a person.
Me too.
I really, really like that. I like vulnerable, raw, and right to the point and, tell it like it is. Because used to say, if only boys would tell you whether they liked you or not for real, that would have been so helpful.
Yes. Yes. When someone has a romantic interest in you and can just tell you, it's wonderful.
Or not. And let you go on with your life instead of, they'll hang out because, you're available. Well, I just wish I really knew if I was, a choice or a compromise. It was a long time ago. I'm happily married for 8 years or 7 years.
I think what you're speaking to, though, is super relevant because if everybody had an ability to regulate their fear enough to be courageous and tell the truth, more of the time, the world would be a better place.
I just had tea with my friend, and she was saying she didn't want to hurt this person's feelings. So she was trying to think what to say. And I'm like, the truth is the best thing to say, no matter what. Even if it hurts the person's feelings in the moment, it is so much better than down the line when they find out the truth.
Yeah. People are scared to do that. And they're scared because it's become somewhat acceptable to be defensive. You're triggering me. So deal with it so we can continue the conversation. I don't feel safe. Well, safe's not an emotion. So why don't you pick another one and we'll move through this?
Oh, cool. I like that.
It's a way of like offloading responsibility for one's own emotional experience. That's kind of bullshit, in my opinion. If you say you don't want to talk about it, fine. But don't make me the asshole for asking the question that you have an emotional reaction to, particularly because it's sort of built into our relationship. It's solicited advice.
Yeah.
You're asking me for help. This is my job. Like, what are we talking about here? You get triggered. I'm supposed to stop talking. Wait, what about me says that's going to happen? Like, in what universe am I going to stop because you get prickly? No.
Everybody who knows you knows this is who you are.
The deal.
This is who you are. So what I want to know is that maybe people don't know, and I don't know, is how'd you get this way? Tell me about your, the punk rock doc, and what was your childhood like? What were your parents like? Have you always been outspoken? Tell me about things that people don't know about you.
Yes, I've definitely always been outspoken. There's nothing like learning what you want to be by being surrounded by what you don't want to be.
Oh, okay.
Talk about a dialectic. 12 years of Catholic school. Can you imagine me in Catholic school? We went for the education because we lived out in the country, So my mom was Catholic. My dad wasn't. But it wasn't about the religion. It was about the education. All these years since, I do have an appreciation for it now.
The education that you received?
Yeah. Oh, hell yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It got me into University of Wisconsin-Madison. That was a big deal. And, punk rock music helped. I'm Gen X, The kids now, they don't even expose themselves to punk like at all. And they don't understand what it means. And I've survived because of punk.
Do you mind me asking how old you are?
I'm 48. So, 90s kid, 80s, late 80s punk starts. And that was just so nice to like have a place for all that energy to go and to dance and to sing super loudly and just be like counterculture. Mm-hmm, I think that made me strong. Mm-hmm. I was always in trouble by high school. I was in trouble all the time, not for serious things, but like dress code violations and skipping and I might have been in juvie had I not gone to Catholic school. So I do have an appreciation for it now.
Yeah.
They do
Yeah.
keep tabs on you. So that's good. I think if I were a dude too, it would have been different. People weren't used to such a strong-willed and outspoken female-bodied person.
Yeah.
I got a lot of pushback a lot of times all through school, all through life. It's sort of like even before I knew what DBT was in like 2002 in grad school, I went toward it because it already made sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Behaving according to your values. I remember at 14 being like, you know what? Fuck everybody. I'm just going to do what I believe in. And I'm going to keep doing that regardless of the environmental negative feedback that I get.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. If there is a God, I'll totally get into heaven because I am a good person that's made of love. Like, you know, all the commandments or the man-made things, like, screw all that.
Yeah.
I'll make the cut. And then, you know, after that, I didn't believe in God forever and then made my way back, whatever. It's not a old white guy with a beard that looks like King Triton, but, you know, there's something bigger. So I just think there was a lot of fighting for who I thought, but the DBT part is acting according to one's values. If you behave in a way that's brave and for what you believe in and your purpose that's bigger than you, then there isn't any shame. And I think shame is what causes tons of shitty behaviors that erode self-esteem. Shame, and then it kicks up fear, and then you react, and then you act in a way that causes more shame, and now you're in that loop. I think that's kind of the core of narcissism, and I think narcissism is everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you do what you believe in, and you're brave about it, and I think then you get to be strong like we're all meant to be anyway.
That's so lovely. Did you ever go to counseling or a therapist when you were younger?
That's a great question because I talk to my clients, my students about that because once in a while they'll, you know, I'll challenge them and we'll get in a horn lock and they'll try and do like a silent treatment with me. And I wait, you know, and inside I'm like, you can do it, kiddo. You can get yourself out of this. You know, I'm like silently sending them vibes because I have a respect. That's willful behavior. You know, they're getting in their own way. I can actually help them. But at the same time, there's a strength in that that's just misdirected. But I kind of respect the strength, even though it's not very effective in the moment. Because when I went in, I didn't say one goddamn word the first time I was sent to a shrink at 14. He'd ask me questions and I just like look at him like something smelled bad in the room and then just like look away. I mean, I was a demon. So no, I've never had a kid do it for 60 straight minutes. So they're never going to be the demon that I was. So I just try to be what I think I would have wanted.
Mm-hmm. I have a theory that anybody who goes into this has experienced it as a kid or a teenager.
Experienced what?
Anybody who is a counselor or a coach or a therapist needed it for themselves at some point.
Oh, family of origin is always the reason somebody goes into psych. Yeah.
Yeah. So why did they send you?
Well, I don't even think they knew that I was cutting and I was sort of lightweight self-harm.
Oh, you were?
I like to be respectful of the people that I work with that engage in cutting behaviors because mine was kind of bullshit lightweight and theirs can get really, really serious.
I don't know anybody who's ever done that. So what is it?
Yes, you do. You just don't know it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So could you tell me about it a little bit so it's not so scary to somebody who, I don't know anything. So what does it mean to cut yourself? And you're saying, is it lightweight because you weren't trying to commit suicide? You were just trying to get attention, or were you trying to get attention?
No, I was trying to relieve the pain,
Oh, okay.
which is why people do any kind of self-harm.
Okay.
And nobody seems to really understand that. And everyone remains very scared of self-harm behaviors, particularly cutting. And I get it. Parents don't want to see blood on their child that they inflicted. Like, that's so scary for them. And I get that.
Yeah.
I just also know that cutting in particular is usually pretty easy to help someone with, at least for me, because an understanding that it is a behavior that relieves suffering in the moment, but there are much better ones out there that don't cause shame after. They just don't know what they are. So I try to teach them that, and nobody gives up their shitty behaviors that actually help in the moment without a fight. So, I got to trade them the healthy ones, and then they got to try them out so they know that they actually work, so they can trust them when they're in a crisis where they would usually cut themselves. Now they can try something else.
So what about you? How did you stop doing it? What helped you? How long did you do it?
Oh, I have no idea. I was like 13 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't like committed to it, but I was definitely suicidal and full of hate and rage. I mean, total rage. And I sort of made a decision that I wasn't, that's what it was, that I overheard. I was listening to my parents' conversation when I was like 13. And I heard my dad say to my mom, this is getting really bad. The two of you, and you're fighting. It's like affecting the whole family. And she was like, yeah, I know. And he said, sometimes it sort of seems like you hate her. And I heard my mom say, I do hate her.
Oh, I see.
And I was like, free. In that moment, I was like, well, that is fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to be suicidal. I don't suck. That is so wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So it can't be about me. And I was sort of freed in that moment. And now, as an older woman who doesn't have children, I can see the nuances of that. And, that could have been a momentary thing of like, I'm so over this, and that I can empathize with her.
Mm-hmm.
But in the moment, it was totally freeing to hear that. And I stopped all that shit. I stopped thinking it was me in that moment, and decided I had better things to do. I was already sort of sick of being depressed and miserable all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I sort of knew that I was naturally happy and fun and like to play. And all that emo shit just kind of fell away. And again, punk for me, it offered an expressive vehicle. So that didn't just live and fester in me.
Yeah.
People think it's all about anger and hate. It's not that. It's expression of emotion. And anger is an emotion too, that you got to learn. You can't just ignore that you have it, or you get super hostile and passive aggressive, gross. It has to go somewhere.
Yeah.
Anger is the emotion that tells us our boundaries are being crossed. So it's really important to know when we're feeling it, validate it, and know how to behave from it in a way that matches our values.
Did you have an okay relationship with your mom?
No, not at all.
No, not at all. Mm-hmm. Is she still alive?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she is.
And what's it like now? Same, just not a good relationship?
No relationship.
Mm-hmm. I did an episode with women who've lost their mothers, but I have enough people whose mothers are alive and they have no relationship with them to do a motherless daughters episode with mothers still living.
Oh, that would be so interesting.
It is interesting. It's so complicated.
Yeah, it is very complicated, and it's a very lonely place to be.
Right.
Part of the reason I started a support group for my advanced students ages ago was because they kept saying things to me like, you're the only one I can talk to about this. And I thought, shit, that sucks. because you are all saying that. You should have each other to talk to about it too, because it's so isolating when you have problems or severed relationships with family members. You can't talk to anybody about it because they don't understand it. And they constantly say invalidating things like, well, you should just talk to her or whatever. Like, what do you think you're going to come up with on a first pass that I haven't already thought of in 40 friggin' years? You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's so unhelpful. Well-intentioned, very unhelpful. And then you just wish you hadn't opened up to the person anyway.
Right.
So to have these young people together talking about it has been so relieving for them. They appreciate it so much. And they run it now. They don't even need me. They run their own and do just great with it. But they sure needed a community. It's so taboo.
Yeah.
Like, I rarely talk about it publicly.
Yeah.
I talk about it with clients when I think it might help them to disclose in small pieces. But yeah, no, I don't really talk about it publicly much.
Well, thanks for talking to me about it.
Sure.
I'm fascinated with the mother-daughter relationship. I lost my mother when I was 18, and the more I parent, the more I have such sympathy for my mother. So I'm always interested too, those who have their parents living that they're not in a relationship with, are they parents? And you're not. So that's interesting too, because there's nowhere for you to see how hard it was for her. If it was, I'm not validating her at all. I don't know what she did or anything.
I think it was very hard for her. I have a lot of empathy and sympathy for her. She was working.
Yeah.
She knew how to make $1 last. Like, we were poor. Growing up, I have a lot to validate of hers. You know, it's just not healthy.
That I've come to too, that even if they're related, that doesn't mean that's a good relationship. Not a good relationship to nurture. Yeah, it doesn't always mean it's the right relationship to have.
Yeah. Being how I am and I do everything like all the way, I would have liked, I think, to be, I thought many times about having children. I would have done that all the way, I think. And now I get to love other people's children. Even before I did this, I nannied and, I get to, love a lot of children. They just didn't come from my body,
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, the world needs more of that. That's for sure.
It's a privilege for me too.
What are the books that you've written?
I have 3 books now. It's called the Holy Shit series on Amazon. Holy Shit, My Kid is Cutting is the first one. It's a parenting manual. It's not just for parenting and it's not just for cutting, but parents have found it really useful. The second one is Holy Shit, I'm a Gifted Misfit. And that is my Get Real program.
Okay.
In a nutshell. It's the 8-week program. That's the one that everybody needs. They just don't know that they need. But I'm hoping the third one gets the press. Holy shit, I'm dealing with a narcissist, because that's kind of a hot topic right now. And everybody thinks that they understand it and they don't. And they say it all the time with a 18th of an understanding of a very complex personality disorder. And so I try to break it down in lay people's terms. I give caricatures of different kinds of narcissists and what they say and what you say, which seems pretty normal, but because you're dealing with the narcissist, it's not. It fails. So say this instead. And just try to explain it as best I can so it's useful.
Would you just explain to me, tell me what the definition of a narcissist is?
Well, mine is someone who has a pervasive feeling of shame. And I think of it in terms of dialectics, the Venn diagram again, where one of the circles is ordinary and the other circle is extraordinary. And what a narcissist will do, because they have so much shame, they only show the extraordinary. Look at me, I'm so shiny, whatever. and they hide away the ordinary, the pedestrian, the flaws. And anytime you hide any piece of yourself systematically, you're going to have shame about that.
Yeah.
And then it's going to kick up anxiety because you're trying to hide things and you're trying to be right all the time and you're trying to overcompensate for what you just got called out on. And that shame and fear loop just has you behaving poorly, and then causes more shame and more anxiety. And it just erodes self-esteem in such a big way. But most people think a narcissist is just a synonym for asshole. But there are all kinds, I talk about the fall on the sword narcissist that like pulls or feedback that they suck, or like the passive aggressive Midwestern grandma who like always says shitty things to you with a smile and some food. Actually, all these, cutting, dialectical behavior therapy, narcissism, these are very complex, heavy topics. And I just think that some levity and some realness and layperson's terms help the understanding so people can navigate their world with a way that they understand it and can use it.
I really appreciate you just being so open and, willing to go where I was going. And I just love your personality, and I really love your no bullshitness. Wish there was more of you in the world.
Oh, thank you for saying that. And I think that you are a really gracious interviewer.
Oh, thank you.
You make it easy. You have a plan, and then you're going after stuff that, not everybody wants to talk about, but the way that you do it is great.
Oh, thank you.
You make room for the answer. It's cool. Thank you.
I'm just all choked up. Thank you. That's just a real nice compliment. Thank you. Every once in a while, I'm like, why am I doing this? But your compliment really helps solidify why I'm doing it and what I know I'm supposed to be doing.
It's very clear.
Oh, thank you. Oh, I just really do feel choked up. Thank you.
You're welcome.